All right, good morning. So I was asked to kind of give an introduction video to this chapter, overview, and I didn't see it. So don't ever hesitate if you have questions or don't feel like there's a video that really, I don't know, summarizes what's happening in the chapter. Don't ever hesitate to ask, okay? So this is chapter 12, long-term liabilities, okay? So here, basically, we're receiving something up front, typically an asset, and in turn, we're responsible, or we have a future obligation to pay that back, okay? And because it's long-term, it's going to be, we have to pay it back, or maybe we get to, maybe it's a privilege or an opportunity that we don't have to pay it back all at once, but instead we pay it back over a period of time, okay, a length of time. So this chapter really, the focus of the chapter is 3 different types of long-term liabilities, okay? And each of them, the only real difference between them is when we pay the principal and when we pay the interest, okay? So the principal is the initial amount that we've borrowed, okay? So it's typically like cash, it's the asset that we've received, okay? And then the interest is the cost of using someone else's money, okay? So the distinction between each of these is just when we pay or how we pay each component of the loan back, the principal and the interest, okay? So notes payable, it's this example here, and I've copied this into the summer semester Google Sheet, okay? There are videos on this too, so I don't think I'm going to go step by step through every part of it unless you want me to, and then I'll do another one. But this one, this one is the one I copied over. So let me just go into here real quick. Just make sure it's here, should be. Yeah, so copy of long-term debt. All right, so this first one, a note payable, okay? So the idea is this, first we receive an asset, cash, okay? And we have to show that we've incurred a liability, okay? So we increase liabilities by crediting them. So there is our initial journal entry, okay? On that very first date on 12/31/2018, we haven't incurred any interest at this point, like no time has went by. There's 3 things that have to occur for interest. First, there has to be money borrowed. Second, there has to be an interest rate, right? Something, whatever rate we've agreed to, that's the amount we pay in interest, right? And then the third thing, like time has to go by, okay? So at this point, we have the amount we borrowed, $50,000. We have the interest rate, 5%, but nothing has went by, okay? No time has went by. So that's all we would have at that point, okay? So if you look at the wording on this, we're going to pay $10,000 pay $10,000 back to reduce down the principal, the $50,000. And then in addition to that, we're also going to pay 5% interest. So you can see we're not going to pay the same amount each year, okay? So this one's years. We're not going to pay the same amount each year. Instead, we're going to pay $10,000 plus whatever the interest rate is, okay? So on the first year, after a year has gone by, we pay back $10,000. So we reduce down the principal, which is the note, okay? So we debit it to reduce down this liability, this $50,000 liability. We've dropped it down by $10,000 now. And then we need to calculate the interest expense for that period of time. So if you look at that, it's 5% interest. It was for the full year. And for the full year, we had $50,000 of principal that we owed money on, right? And then on December 31st, we pay back $10,000 of the principal and we pay the interest on that. So just the full amount, 5% times 50,000, okay? Now, the next year, okay, so we're still going to pay $10,000, but now at this point, instead of paying interest on the full 50,000, we're going to pay interest on 40,000 because we had reduced down the principal. And so we would do that until, we would do that for that year. And then the next year it would be 10,000, but the interest expense at that point, instead of being 40,000 like this, it would be 20,000, right? Or sorry, 30,000. So 5% times 30,000 would be our interest expense. So you can see the payment amount is changing each year, started out 12,500, then went down to 12,000 and so on and so forth. Okay? So that's your notes payable example. All right, now on your mortgage payable, okay, and these are typically, we have mortgages when there's a tangible asset to back up the loan. Okay, so in this case, it's a building, but you've heard the term mortgage, maybe for your parents' house or something like that. Okay, so the way a mortgage works is the amount that is paid, okay, the total amount will stay the same. Okay, and this is obviously a traditional mortgage, okay, with a fixed interest rate. Okay, so that amount is going to stay the same, but what will happen is over time, the amount that is allocated to principal and interest will change. Really, it'll change every payment, okay? And so in order to do this, this first journal entry is the same, right? Here we're receiving a building instead of cash. But other than that, we have an asset, we have a liability, we record the amount, $50,000, okay? Now, oftentimes mortgages are paid monthly, okay? So I just went ahead and did, this is called an amortization table for a mortgage, okay? And so what we have here, the payment stays the same, $943.56, okay? Now what you'll see though is this interest is based on the principal, okay? So $50,000, okay? So what we're doing is going 5%. Now it's monthly, so we need to divide it by 12 and then multiply that by 50,000, okay? And so that gives us what the interest is, okay? Anything left over, so 943.56 minus 208, that's going to go to the principal, okay? Which means our principal reduces down. So all that's happening is we went 50,000 minus 735 gives us our new principal balance. Okay, so the next month, at the end of the month, then we're going to do our new calculation. Okay, the interest rate is the same, divide by 12, but we're going to multiply it by 49,265 instead of 50,000. Okay, so we're paying just a little bit less in interest and just a little bit more in principal. Okay, and you'll see it will go down. The amount to interest will go down. The amount to principal will go up until we get to the very end, when essentially none of it is being paid to interest. Almost all of it is being paid to principal, and at that point, the loan is paid off. Okay, so the advantage of this to the lending institution is a good chunk of the payment in the beginning is going to interest. Okay, so they're getting their interest up front, and the principal is kind of being paid off secondary, right? The interest is paid first, then the principal is paid. Okay, now this is a 5% mortgage, which really we have better interest rates than that right now, so it's not as pronounced. But if you start bumping this interest rate up, then you'll see, and if it's also a longer loan, okay, this is only a 5-year loan. Normally, a lot of people do, almost everyone does 30-year mortgages, and that really impacts what happens with this. Okay, because then there's just way more interest that's being paid up front and like a very little amount going to principal. Okay, I like 15-year mortgages because it's less interest that you're paying up front, so more is going to principal. Okay, the journal entry for each of these is simply, the amount reducing the principal, mortgage payable, the amount we're recording in interest expense, and then there's our payment of cash. Okay, so play around with this. I think I have other examples of, where they're 30-year mortgages and stuff like that. Okay, all right, now the last style is bonds. Okay, so with a bond, the way it works is, and the most common type of bond is, we are only paying interest, okay, over the life of the bond, and we're not paying any principal, okay, until the end of the life of the bond. Okay, so logic is this, and I know there are videos on this because I just watched one, but I guess I'll just keep going real quick. Okay, so we have, we issued $260,000 of 12% 5-year bonds payable. Okay, bonds are paid and pay interest semi-annually. Okay, that's just how bonds work here in the United States. We pay semi-annually. It's not the case around the world, but that's how I want you to learn it. And I want you to use the effective interest rate, okay? Because that is really the only method that's allowed by GAAP, okay? So what we have for our steps is, first off, we need to figure out on that $260,000, okay? We're going to figure out how much money we actually receive, okay? Because we issued $260,000 of bonds, okay? They're 12% bonds, so that's basically what we're agreeing to pay annually, which is 6% semi-annually, okay? But if you look at this, the market interest rate is actually 8%. So the market, because of other interest rates out there, or because of how safe of an investment we are, they're willing to pay, or they're willing to accept a lower interest rate than what we were actually willing to pay. Okay, so something happened between the time when we issued when we wrote these bonds, had them written up by an investment bank, where we were willing to pay 12%, but the market, there was high demand for our bonds. A lot of people wanted to invest in our bonds, and so they were willing to accept 8%. Okay, so that's what's going on here. So the first step that we do is we take our $260,000, okay, which that's all that's referencing, okay, and we multiply that by the present value of $1. Okay, so essentially what that's saying is, if we were $260,000 today is worth $260,000, but 5 years from now, it wouldn't be worth $260,000. It would be worth less. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so anytime you go up to the table, always use the market interest rate divided by 2. Okay, so we're going to go 8% divided by 2, which is 4%, and then take the number of years and multiply that by 2. Okay, so that would be 10, obviously. So 4%, 10% gives us a multiplier of 0.676. Okay, so we need to take the $260,000 and multiply that by 0.676. Okay, so that is the present value of the principal. Okay, 5 years from now. Okay, and basically what we're figuring out is how much money we would receive today. Okay, so that's the first step. Okay, now the second step, we need to take into account the payment. Okay, there's a semi-annual payment. So every 6 months, we're going to make a payment. What is the present value of that payment? Okay, so the first thing, let's figure out what is the payment. So we're doing, now we look at the stated rate, okay, what the bonds were actually issued at, that's 12%. Divide it by 2 because it's semi-annual, and then multiply it by the principal, okay? So every 6 months, we would pay out in cash $15,600, okay? That's just what we've agreed to do based on this 12%, okay? But if you think about it, the present value of that is actually a stream of payments, right? So there's $15,600 6 months from now, and then $15,600 a year from now, and then $15,600 a year and a half from now, 2 years, you know, semi-annual, okay? And so what we need to do is figure out what is the present value of that stream of payments, okay? And so again, if we go up here to the table, and now you'll look at this. So here was the present value of $1. You'll notice every one of those was less than 1. Okay, the closest one to 1 is 0.82, but all of them are less than 1. Why? Because $1 is going to be worth less in the future than it is today, right? So use the present value of $1 for the principal. That's just one payment, okay? Now with these semi-annual payments, there are multiple payments, okay? So we call that an annuity, okay? It's like a regular set of payments. That's all an annuity means, okay? So we're going to take our 15,600, okay? Remember, always use the market rate, which is 8%, okay? We need to divide it by 2, so that's 4%. And then how many payments are there? It's 5 years, so multiply that by 2, so 10. Okay, so 4%, 10%, 8.11. You see this? All of these are greater than 1, right? Because multiple payments is going to be worth more than just one payment, right? This over here, present value of $1, that was just one payment. These are multiple payments, okay? So we're going to take that amount that we pay, $15,600, and we're going to multiply it by that number that's greater than 1, 8.111. Okay. And so that is the amount, that's the present value of the semi-annual payments. Now you combine the two, and that gives you the actual amount of money you would receive. Okay. So that is the amount of money you would receive when you issued these bonds based on this scenario. Okay. All right. So now let me show you how the payments work and things like that. Okay. So now basically what we did is we took that amount, that's the carrying amount. Okay. That's the amount we received. Now the cash payment is going to be the same, right? 15,600 all the way through. The effective interest rate or effective interest expense is going to be based on the market rate, which is 8%, divide it by 2, okay, which gives you 4%, and then multiply that by the carrying amount, okay? So that's the interest expense, okay? And then the difference between those is what we call the amortization. So in this case, it's a premium amortization, okay? So our carrying amount, it starts greater than the face amount, right? That's because we receive more money. And then they will always go toward the face. So if it's a premium, it's greater than the face, but it'll drop down, drop down, drop down till it gets to the face. If it's issued at a discount, which I'll post a discount example too, then it'll start below the face. So it'd be like 250,000 and it would go up and up and up, okay? And so to look at the journal entries on this, once we have the table and yeah, basically what you'll do is I'll give you this amount here, okay, the present value, and then you'll need to do the table. It's a little bit smaller table, something like that on the test, okay? And then you'll need to do the journal entries, okay? And I show this in the test review too, okay? So on this case, we're gonna receive the cash, okay? That's the full amount, Okay, remember though, we actually only agreed to pay back $260,000. Okay, and so, oh darn. Okay, so our bonds payable is only $260,000. The difference is the premium amortization, okay, which needs to be a credit to get our journal entry to balance. Okay, then our interest expense is based off of this amount, which is the market rate divided by 2 multiplied by the carrying amount. Okay, the cash payment is the amount we actually agreed to pay, and the difference will, in this case, well, and actually always, it'll start to reduce down either the premium or the discount. Okay, so it's reducing down the premium in this case, so we're debiting that. Okay, and it will go all the way until, you know, we do these journal entries every 6 months. Just the numbers would change until we finally pay off the bonds, which is just paying off the principal. Okay, so I hope that's a pretty good overview. I'm happy to chat with you more about it if you have any questions. So thank you for watching.